Pork chops with applesauce goes back to medieval times, when the quality of pork was often not very good, and various spiced apple mixes made it more palatable. While Americans mostly eat plain applesauce with pork, very few Russians would because they don't combine sweet fruit with meat. This is an exception that works because the sweetness of the apple is offset by a Georgian sour plum sauce called tekameli. Now, add in roasted smoky peppers, pistachios, and dried cranberries, and you have a whole new kind of delicious you've never tasted before. These light green peppers are ideal, and they're plentiful in Russia. If you can't get these, use yellow bell peppers.
I'm going to start off with 4 or 5 peppers, about half a kilogram, and I'm going to remove the coarse from these, just like this. That gets thrown away, and then we're going to slice these in half, clean out the middle a little bit. Now, don't have to be too careful about it. You put them on a tray. Don't have to use a sill pad either, it's not essential, just makes cleanup a little bit easier. Brush on a little bit of vegetable oil. Again, this isn't a real meticulous operation. A little bit of coarse salt, always a good idea. Yeah, it's mostly not going to stick. Don't let that bother you. It'll be fine. And then it goes into the oven for roasting. After about 15 minutes, they've got a good amount of blistering on them, and the skin's going to be able to be peeled off easily. But just let them cool down to close to room temperature before you continue. Then, after they're cooled off, you can just use your fingers and peel the skin off. You don't have to be meticulous about it, but you want to try to get most of this off. Now you get them laid out like this. Now you can take the lazy approach and just throw all these into food processor and chop them up. Believe me, when I've got 5 kilograms of these things to do, that's what I tend to want to do too. But the texture will be much better if you take a knife and you cut them up manually. And then I come down and you go the other way. This is what you want to see. You've got nice large pieces here. These will break down a little bit more as it's cooked. And then we've got the apples we need to turn our attention to. Peel and core these. After you've peeled and cored it, go ahead and break it down and get it into nice chunky pieces. You don't want them too small, because they're going to shrink, and you still want to have some texture in the end for this, but you also don't want them too big, because you don't want to have like one giant lump of apple sitting on top of the meat in the end. So this is a good size. There you have the ingredients assembled. Now we've got the roasted peppers, the apples, and Russian garlic. This is called elephant garlic in many other parts of the world. It's not actually garlic, it's larger. It's a relative of the lily family. These are not interchangeable. You can't use regular garlic in place of elephant garlic or Russian garlic. However, if you absolutely have to, you can use a little bit of garlic, far less, and a little bit of onion. Try to mix the two together. It won't be the same. This has a very distinctive taste. I'll show you what this looks like after you crack it open and you get it down to here. Now these of course still need to be peeled, but you can see how large these cloves are. This is much larger than regular garlic, and the aroma is different, the taste is different. But once the pan is hot, I'm using a large pan, it's 28 centimeters. I'm using unrefined sunflower oil again. You can use regular sunflower oil. This is much better, but I realize it's hard to get outside of Russia. Okay, pan's hot. Try to get these down to basically a single layer, and then don't stir them around too much at first. Give them a chance to get some browning on one side here before we start turning them around. It's been 8 minutes now. I have not stirred it, and as you can see, now there's some color on the bottom of those apples. And they're softening up a bit. The heat's on, the whole time it's been on 7. Out of 1 to 10, it's on 7. So I'm just going to stir these around a little bit more. And I'm going to give them just a couple more minutes. I'm going to bring it up to a total of about 10 minutes here without having stirred it very much. Just try to get some real good color on those apples first. It's been a couple more minutes. I've got this elephant garlic that or Russian garlic that I've chopped up. And now this needs quite a bit of cooking too, because we want to really mellow that flavor. Now with the Russian garlic, you have to actually stir it fairly frequently because you don't want this to burn. The apples will caramelize, the garlic will burn, and it'll become bitter and nasty. So once you add that, you have to actually stir it frequently, not constantly. You can let it sit for a minute or so at a time, but don't just let it sit here for like 10 minutes like we did earlier. Okay, it's been 5 more minutes. Now I'm going to add the stock. I'm using duck stock that I made myself. Nice thick jellified duck stock. This is also the point that you're going to add those dried cranberries in if you're using them, and a little pinch of crushed red pepper flakes. If you're Russian, you're going to use these very judiciously because they're afraid of spicy foods. But if you're Georgian, you're going to put lots and lots in. I kind of aim for the middle. There's a few, but I'm not going crazy. Once the stock is dissolved, that's fine. Now I'm going to add those peppers back in. We're going to cook this together for a little while. Once in a while. After about 5 minutes of stirring this and it's starting to get thick, you need to taste it and adjust the salt levels. It's going to need some salt, obviously. And after 5 more minutes, now the flavor should have melded. It tastes balanced now. You've got your salt levels adjusted. And turned the heat off completely. And now we add this Tecanelli sour plum, red sour plum to it. And this is used kind of like ketchup in Georgia. So the exact amount you add is going to depend on the brand that you use and your own personal preferences. A couple tablespoons should be about right. And this sourness of these plums will balance against the sweetness of the apple. And then that way you won't end up with a dish that's excessively sweet, which Russians hate. Russians hate sweet fruit with meat. It's just not in their culture. So this works out real well because it balances the apple's sweetness. Okay, I have to taste it again and do the final adjustment. After you've trimmed up your pork, it's good, nice, thick pieces. I haven't even bothered to brine this. It'll be just fine even without the brine. I'm using the jacquard device. Now, I'm going to just add a little bit of coarse salt to this. Okay, more than a little bit. And fresh pepper on one side, fresh cracked black pepper on one side. And this is going to be grilled. Now, the key here is don't get your grill pan too hot because you don't want it to be completely singed on the outside before it's cooked in the middle. You want it to cook evenly. So you want to be able to get those nice grill marks on it. But this is pork. It can't be raw in the middle. It's not steak. So you have to adjust the temperature of your grill pan so that it cooks on the outside. It sears just about the same time as the inside is done. When you've got that done on all of them, then put a little bit of olive oil or regular oil down on the pork. I'm just using regular vegetable oil for this. And you want to oil the meat, not the pan, in this case. And they're ready. I'm not going to overcrowd the pan. I'm only going to do 2 at a time here. About 3.5 minutes. It's been another 3.5 minutes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt this up put these together, and I'm going to just cook the fat side for a minute or so here. Roll it around a little bit. Then I'm going to transfer these to a bowl, and we're going to let these cool off and let the juices in these run off. And of course, let the pan get hot again before we do the other two pork chops. After these have rested for 10 or 15 minutes, you'll see that there's a huge amount of liquid that's ran off of them in the bowl, and that's what we're going to use to recook this topping. Now the topping gets finished using these juices.
So what I did is I poured the juices that collected from the pork chops in the bowl into a non-stick pan. Now I'm going to dish out the appropriate amount of this apples and elephant garlic and peppers and cook these in the juices. Now there's still a lot more of that mixture with the apples. We can use those for more pork chops in the future, of course. There's enough there for about maybe 8 pork chops in all.
I'm going to cook this down until it's not liquidy anymore. You want to make it as solid as you can without burning it, of course. And when the pan is dried out, then we're going to put the pork chops back in to warm them back up. I should have used a slightly larger pan for this, but principle's the same. Put a lid over them and let them kind of steam in these juices for just, I don't know, 3 minutes, something like that, 2-3 minutes. Just at a low heat, just enough to warm the pork chops back up. We're not looking to cook them anymore. And mound the filling up on top and finish it with some crushed pistachios. And
If you like my videos, look for my cookbook, now available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other internet bookseller sites. Also look for my cocktail book, Cocktails of the South Pacific and Beyond, Advanced Mixology, available through Amazon online.